Sunday evening, July 26, 2015, was filled with anxiety and chaos at the Tannery Arts Center apartment complex in Santa Cruz, California. At 6:08 p.m., a panicked call came into 911. A little girl was missing, and her mother was distraught and terrified.
She was riding her brand new scooter. It's a white Razor. She had a black helmet on. She was wearing a purple dress, and she was just happy as could be riding around.
Now, did you check with friends to see if she was with them?
Absolutely. We've searched the entire tannery, door to door. Officers have gone door to door, every loft. We've looked at cameras. We've had search parties all night long.
Is there anyone else? Is there another friend, an adult friend she might have befriended or anything like that?
Not that I can think of at all.
Has she ever done anything?
Nothing. Never. Never. She's never left tannery property. She knows where she's can and cannot be here. She was, in the courtyard where she was supposed to be. She came over here, and that was the last we saw of her on surveillance.
So where do you go? I mean, I just got to ask, how difficult is it knowing that you can't really do any? I mean, you're doing what you can, but
I already fell apart. Now I'm just in survival mode. I can't explain how difficult this is. Nobody should have to go through this.
On October 5, 2007, in the family of Laura Jordan and Michael Middleton, a daughter was born whom they named Madison. Parents and acquaintances affectionately called her Maddy. She became the long-awaited, only beloved child, the center of their universe. From the first minutes of life, Madison showed an amazing passion for learning about the world. Her sincere joy and inexhaustible interest in her surroundings delighted everyone who was near the baby. Laura and Michael never ceased to admire their daughter. They tried to give her all the best, surrounding her with love and care. Maddy grew up in an atmosphere of warmth, understanding, and support, which helped her to explore the world with confidence. The Middleton family resided in the unique artistic apartment complex, the Tannery Arts Center, in Santa Cruz, California. It was the perfect place to raise a creative and active girl like Maddy. The complex provided affordable housing for families and artists, creating a tight-knit community where everyone was close and supportive of one another. Maddy grew up surrounded by art and creativity. She was always on the move, happily exploring the world around her. From an early age, the girl showed a love for music, dance, and drawing. She often entertained her family with impromptu performances and colorful drawings. Maddy's mother, Laura, described her as a smart, intuitive, and genuine child. Maddy was always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need and never saw anything but good in people. Her generous spirit and empathy were evident from the earliest age. At the age of 8, Maddy was already known in the apartment complex as Chatty Maddy. She struck up conversations with everyone she met, easily made new friends, and brought smiles to those around her. The girl's energetic spirit and friendly demeanor made her a favorite in the community. One of Maddy's favorite activities was riding her white scooter. She had received it as a gift just a few days before the tragic events, and had been inseparable from it ever since. The girl spent hours riding around the inner courtyard of the complex, enjoying the feeling of freedom and joy. In addition to active play, Maddy had a passion for creativity. She loved to sing, dance, and draw. Laura recalled how her daughter often painted small toy animal figurines and made up entire stories and performances with them. Maddy's vivid imagination knew no bounds. Despite her young age, Maddy was remarkably sensible and knew the safety rules. She never talked to strangers and didn't wander far from home. The girl always stayed close to the apartment complex, where she felt comfortable and protected among friends and neighbors. On that fateful Sunday, July 26th, Maddy was enjoying the last hours of the weekend. Her friend had come over and was playing a board game with her mom, Laura. Maddy waited patiently for them to finish and decided to ride her new scooter, which she had received a few days earlier. She couldn't wait to cruise around the courtyard before it got dark. Around 4 p.m., Several neighbors saw Maddy happily riding her scooter. After that, she was spotted a few more times nearby, stopping to chat with other children, but mostly entertaining herself. She was last seen at 7:30 p.m., riding past the mailboxes. After that, she vanished without a trace. Her mother, Laura, initially assumed Maddy might have gone to visit one of her friends and began checking with neighbors. The massive 8-acre apartment complex had about 100 units, but with each negative response, the alarm grew. Maddy was nowhere to be found. Police officers quickly arrived on the scene and immediately launched a search. The girl's family assured them that although Maddy was confident she would never go far on her own or talk to strangers, detectives understood that her disappearance was highly uncharacteristic. Despite this, an Amber Alert was not issued because, according to police, the case did not meet certain criteria. An Amber Alert is an emergency notification system that broadcasts information about a missing or abducted child who is in danger. An extensive search involving the Santa Cruz Police Department, the Sheriff's Search and Rescue Team, and a canine unit continued late into the night, but yielded no results. By 11 a.m. the next day, 50 FBI agents had joined the case, knocking on apartment doors and asking everyone to check garages, dumpsters, gardens, and sheds. By that point, the apartment complex had already been thoroughly searched from top to bottom, and the search area for Maddy expanded to the surrounding areas. At a specially convened press conference, the Santa Cruz police announced that they had expanded the search area for the missing 8-year-old girl to 42 square miles, and brought in the FBI with additional resources. Rescuers in orange vests combed a large area of Santa Cruz in hopes of finding any trace of Madison Middleton. Neighbors joined the search. "She's just a wonderful kid. We would have heard her. I don't get this. Nobody gets this. We would have heard she was just right here, one said. Parents learned about the girl's disappearance when they brought their children to a dance lesson at the Tannery Arts Center. I mean, it's tragic. I feel terrible. Like I was telling my son, I'm hoping that they're going to find her. We're sending positive, happy thoughts that she's going to come back happy and healthy." One of the fathers shared his feelings. Neighbors immediately began helping with the search and combed the area all night, but to no avail. "We're all feeling a little helpless at this point. We've been checking all the tents and homeless camps. A lot of us have been up all night. We've gone as far as Paradise Park," another neighbor added. Police stated that there was no evidence of a forcible abduction of Maddy, so they were treating it as a missing person case. "We're not calling this a kidnapping. We're still early on in our investigation. What we're calling it is, we're looking for a lost child," law enforcement explained. Late in the day, police officers stopped cars entering the Tannery parking lot, looking for any information or signs of the missing Madison. Hundreds of volunteers arrived to help. Police received over 1,000 tips, and it was evident how much the case had touched the public and how people were trying to help bring the girl home. As the search approached the 20-hour mark, police decided to refocus on the interior of the apartment complex. Given the small window of time in which Maddy had suddenly disappeared, they were confident the answers were hidden somewhere within the apartments. A more thorough and intensive search of the buildings began. Just over a day after the search for Maddy began, it ended painfully and abruptly at 8 p.m. On July 27th, her body was found in a bag inside a recycling bin in the garage on the first floor of the apartment complex. Around 8 in the evening, police suddenly escorted all residents and pushed them out onto the street after Maddy's remains were discovered. Everyone experienced shock and grief over the loss of the vivacious 8-year-old Maddy. According to the detective, everyone's heart sank when they found the girl's body, but they quickly regrouped as the missing person case had now turned into a homicide investigation. No sooner had this happened than the police announced an arrest of a suspect. In Santa Cruz, California, police detained a 15-year-old teenager in connection with the disappearance and apparent death of an 8-year-old girl. Even more shocking was that the suspect lived in the same apartment complex and was only 15 years old. At approximately 7:55 p.m., a Santa Cruz police detective conducted a search of the complex, which included a recycling bin located in a first-floor garage area of the Tannery Arts Center parking structure. That's where Maddy's body was discovered. The 15-year-old teen, who lived in the apartment one floor above where Maddy's body was found, was nearby at the time of the discovery. He was immediately taken into custody and transported to the Santa Cruz police station for questioning. Santa Cruz police detectives interrogated this individual until morning, after which he was arrested for the murder of Madison Middleton. Furthermore, investigators discovered evidence linking the suspect to this horrific crime. It was apparent that Maddy was voluntarily lured into the suspect's apartment. It was also established that Maddy was killed inside the suspect's apartment. The investigation concluded that the suspect acted alone and not in collusion with anyone else. The police spokesperson thanked members of his department who had worked tirelessly throughout the investigation. Many of them had worked 36 hours straight, driven by the desire and hope to find Maddy alive. I would like to thank the members of my staff who worked relentlessly throughout this investigation, many of whom worked 36 hours straight, driven by our desire and hope that we would find Maddy safe. I'm sure all of you can relate to this. As a parent myself, and many of you, I'm sure, are parents, this has just been absolutely devastating for me personally and for my staff. My staff was so hopeful that we were going to find her alive. When the news came last night that she was not alive, it was devastating. At 9 p.m. on July 28th, the shattered community gathered for a memorial service. A lot of the people in town and all over have been walking around numb. It's like, that's how I feel. I feel like I've been walking around numb. I couldn't even imagine if it was somebody that I loved, somebody that I was close to. Though the teen's identity was not disclosed due to his age, everything changed when Santa Cruz County District Attorney Jeff Roselle made a statement. He reported that they had sufficient evidence against the suspect and would charge him as an adult, not only with murder but also with kidnapping and sexual assault. The law allows, under certain circumstances, with certain types of offenses, a determination as to whether or not you want to charge someone as an adult or whether or not they're charged as a juvenile. Based on the information that we know at this point, there do appear to be charges that can be filed as an adult, and we are absolutely considering that. These are the types of charges and the type of offenses that can and should be charged as adult crimes. After that, the suspect's name was made public. It turned out the suspect was Adrian Gonzalez, known as AJ, who had lived in that apartment for the last 6 years with his mother. For the neighbors, this came as a shock, and the fact that he could be involved stunned them. Not knowing the details, everyone initially thought it must have been an accident, and AJ had panicked and tried to cover it up. Everyone described him as a nice, polite boy who often spent time outside with other children, teaching them yo-yo tricks and how to play the piano. He even worked as a camp counselor for younger kids. Everyone loved and trusted him, and it was unthinkable to comprehend. We love this kid, all of us. If you ask us what we think of him, we'll tell you he's an outstanding kid, our model child, one of the neighbors recounted. But others claimed his social media posts indicated he was far more troubled than anyone realized, and many of his posts had disturbing captions. There was also talk that he had abused his dog several years ago, and one of his friends urged him to seek help when he started threatening to jump off buildings. What initially drew police attention to AJ that day was that he was watching them closely as they searched the dumpsters. The second officers realized Maddy was there, he started running away, even though he couldn't even see what they had found. He had assisted in the search and been involved in the investigation from the very beginning. asking everyone questions about what they knew and if they had heard anything. It seemed innocent, but when police questioned him after he fled, they realized something was very wrong, and he had something to hide. They didn't go into details about what he said or what evidence they found in his apartment, which was likely related to his age and how much they were allowed to disclose. The next day, the results of Maddy's autopsy came back, and it was determined that her mouth had been taped shut. She had been beaten and raped before being strangled and stabbed. It was such a horrific crime, and what poor Maddy had to endure was appalling. After an official interrogation, AJ confessed to the crime. He said he lured Maddy into his apartment by offering her ice cream. Maddy knew AJ well and trusted him. While she was eating the ice cream, he attacked her from behind. After tying her up and raping her, he strangled her and then stuffed her into the bag she was later found in. As he was doing this, he realized she was still alive. After that, he stabbed her in the neck. The medical examiners concluded that she ultimately died from positional asphyxia due to the position in the recycling bin. District Attorney Jeff Rozelle said, "We will hold him accountable." He faces life in prison. He also noted that he considered charging and trying him as an adult the only acceptable course of action, and that AJ was a sexual deviant who had no place in society. Judge Salazar agreed with Jeff Rozelle and determined that AJ's case should be tried in adult court, not juvenile court. He referred to Proposition 57, which was approved by voters and allowed judges to decide whether a teen should be tried as an adult. AJ pleaded not guilty despite his confessions, but his defense team fought hard to get the case moved back to juvenile court using the controversial Senate Bill 1391, which had just gone into effect. SB 1391 prohibits prosecuting anyone aged 14 or 15 as an adult. They also argued that the reasons he did what he did stemmed from a difficult home and school life and social awkwardness, but people who knew the Gonzalez family claimed this was simply untrue. His mother, Reggie, had left his father when the relationship turned abusive, and her children were her top priority. They said AJ was showered with love and affection and came from a loving family who did their best in their circumstances. They recounted that while Reggie struggled with drug and alcohol issues, she was now clean and doing everything she could to make amends for any damage caused. The police and the prosecution stated that many people have harder childhoods than most, and this is not a consequence. They said using his mother and upbringing as some justification for what he did was heartbreaking. Thousands of people signed a petition to stop SB 1391 from being applied to AJ's case, but it was futile. After lengthy discussions and appeals by AJ's defense team, the Supreme Court ruled that his case should be transferred to juvenile court. Santa Cruz County District Attorney Jeff Rozelle expressed his disappointment. "We are extremely disappointed. I've spoken to some of the family members and they are absolutely devastated. We heard in 9 weeks from experts throughout the state that this is not somebody who's going to be safe to be released." This sparked massive outrage, and the community was horrified that something so horrific could happen to someone so vulnerable and only result in a few years of imprisonment. Judge Salazar also expressed his feelings, saying his hands were tied by the change in the law and that he had no choice. He said, allowing all 14 and 15-year-olds charged with first-degree murder and other violent crimes to remain in juvenile court does not promote public safety, as not all of them can be safely rehabilitated. Following this decision, in April 2021, Adrian Gonzalez changed his plea. Top story tonight, a major development in the murder case of 8-year-old Maddy Middleton. Today in court, the suspect Adrian Gonzalez pleaded guilty to all charges related to the kidnapping and murder of Maddy, committed over 5 years ago. Before sentencing, AJ said he hoped the family would forgive him one day. I understand there is very little I can say after all the pain and suffering I have caused. My goal is to work on my issues so no one else has to go through what you had to, he said. I realize this does not change the fact that I brought you tragedy, loss, and devastation. I hope that as I apologize, you can accept my apologies for the actions I took and what they led to. Maddy's father, Michael, said he had accepted the loss of his daughter and forgiven AJ. It doesn't make anything easier, it just gives me peace. The alternative could be to hold on to the darkness, but it would only consume my soul. I refuse to poison my existence. Forgiveness is the only way, and I believe Madison would agree, he said magnanimously. Laura, Maddy's mother, shared that the death of her daughter left her suffering from depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, resulting in her inability to work. Even AJ's attorney expressed relief that this was coming to an end so Maddy's family wouldn't have to endure more than they already had. In the adult justice system, AJ faced 126 years to life in prison, but the juvenile justice system handed down a very different sentence. Namely, "Good evening. Our top story tonight. People gathered outside the Santa Cruz County Courthouse earlier today protesting the sentencing. Under California law, Gonzalez must be sentenced as a juvenile. Gonzalez was 15, almost 16 years old when he killed Maddy Middleton. Because of this, and since he was a child at the time of the murder, he will be released in just 4 years, when he turns 25. Judge Salazar handed down the maximum sentence possible under the circumstances. Under current law, AJ's maximum term of incarceration ends when he turns 25. The trial began in October 2024 and was still ongoing at the time of the video's release. The entire country is watching, and the final verdict is still pending. There's no guarantee AJ will be released in 2024. However, the court can be petitioned to extend his term. District Attorney Jeff Rosal stated he unfortunately believes it's entirely possible AJ will be released. The bottom line is certain changes need to be made in juvenile justice reform, but one-size-fits-all legislation that takes no account for people like Adrian is deeply flawed, Rosal said. We had experts who said they had never ever seen anybody present like him in a 30-year career as a child psychologist. Nobody thinks this person will be healthy, fixed, and able to reintegrate into society at the age of 25. It's a mistake to think otherwise. AJ must also register as a sex offender for life and pay $222,000 in restitution. Maddy's grandfather, Dan, said, "Its sentence ignores all the evidence indicating AJ is a danger to society." He also predicts SB 1391 will have horrible consequences for future cases. It's terrifying that, most likely, he will be released at 25. This law affects not only my family and our community here, but anyone else who suffers a crime at the hands of a juvenile, he said. I believe in reform in the system for juveniles and adults, but this wasn't a crime of robbery or drugs. This was a sociopathic murder. All the experts testified that AJ is unlike anyone they've seen before. He's the next Edmund Kemper. All of us should be terrified. When asked how she wanted the public to remember her daughter, Laura said, "Madison was the love of my life. She brought joy to everyone she met. She was charming, brilliant, creative, artistic, and loving. She loved animals, especially dogs and wolves. She was playful and could hold her own with adults. She wasn't afraid of anything. She was beautiful and loving, and she's gone. But she'll always be a perfect little 8-year-old, and I miss her." An unlikely connection formed between Laura and AJ's mom, Reggie, during the trials. Reggie was devastated that her son had committed such a crime, and neighbors often saw her crying at Maddy's memorial. Laura would sit with her, holding her and telling her it wasn't her fault. "I just love her. I mean, we both lost our kids that day. That's the tragic truth. And I don't blame her," Laura said. Soon, even more pain awaited the grieving family. Maddy's ashes were carried by her father in his car so she would stay close to him, but the family was devastated when someone broke into the car and stole the urn. Sadly, it was never recovered. Maddy came from a close-knit community that continued to honor her name and memory through art and creative works. She loved animals, especially wolves, and a sculpture of a wolf made of sand was created for her on the beach near her home. Laura said Maddy was the light and love of her life and brought so much joy to so many people. She was growing up to be wonderfully bright, cheerful, funny, and generous of heart. She was the best thing I ever created, Laura said. The law that allowed the 15-year-old killer to be tried as a juvenile sparked public outrage. Maddy's family hopes her tragedy will serve as an impetus to re-examine the juvenile justice system. If you have enjoyed the video, then make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out any other latest